Frag out!
Hi everybody, Beige here again with another episode of, let's call this Kit Critical. I'm going to call it from now on. We're going to be looking at helmets, also known as buckets for Airsoft, especially for the realm of CQB, and how to set them up, different types of helmets, and just general considerations when choosing some protective headwear for Airsoft. So for helmets, there's lots of different kinds, lots of different brands out there. We're not going to get too much into that, as we usually do not during these kinds of things, because I do not want to recommend people spending thousands of dollars on a helmet if they just got into Airsoft. Not a good investment, especially just for Airsoft. The main goal of a helmet for me for Airsoft is kind of a few things. Number one, to protect my head against bumps and scrapes, especially at siege. There's an area in the mansion and other areas where you have to crawl through. Of course, being the very smart person I am, I have hit my head on that area multiple times. I actually did not start wearing helmets into my Airsoft career, per se, until about maybe 2 or 3 years into playing, because I just was a hat person. I just kind of like the lightweightness of hats and all that stuff. As I gained some head injuries and lost some brain cells here at Siege and at other fields, I realized that having a bucket or a helmet is really important. The other reason you want a helmet is to mount auxiliary kind of accessories, such as ear protection or communications devices. Ear protection usually can function as both, especially if it's active ear protection. I like to mount my mesh onto my helmet to protect my face, especially at siege. There's no minimum engagement distance here because we are a no babies allowed field. So getting shot in the mouth is not a nice feeling. Of course, for all of you guys who like sick montages and to review training video, it's a good opportunity to mount a GoPro or a similar kind of action camera, including this little contour on Aaron's helmet. And if you're really fancy, I have a Shroud over here. This is a Wilcox G24. You can mount night vision and other accessories on your helmet. Generally, a helmet is basically kind of like your gun. You mount stuff to use on the field. Helmets can also mount different kinds of tools on them to increase your capabilities. So there's going to be 2 basic types of helmets out there, not counting any weird cosplay ones. There's going to be bump and ballistic. The ballistic helmet obviously offers protection against real bullets. So here, I'm going to move my helmet aside. This is another one of my helmets. This is a Gentex, which is the parent company of OpsCore. So this is a TBH2. This is a high-cut TBH. This is basically the same thing as many OpsCore helmets you see out there. The only difference is it uses aramid instead of whatever proprietary ballistic resistant material they use. It's a little heavier. And yeah, it's a cool helmet. It's very, very sturdy. This is obviously not going to bend. It's a level 3A helmet, so it's meant to withstand real bullets and all that stuff. So if you're going out into the streets of a certain area in the world that you may get shot, this is probably the best thing to have. However, unless your game is running some cool armor rules, and I know some games do, the ballistic helmet is probably not the best idea, and that is because they're expensive. They're generally much more expensive than a bump helmet on average, and they're heavy. Of course, you can call me a weenie because I don't got that thick neck. You can pull up that picture of the thick neck guy. You know who I'm talking about? Yeah, the thick neck guy. I don't have that thick neck. The more weight you put on your head, the more when you turn your head, it's gonna feel like you got some momentum jerking your head forward after you turn it, which is not great. So the next type of helmet is gonna be a bump helmet. And a bump helmet means that it's just basically a plastic shell. I have 3 bump helmets on the table with me. These are both Team Wendy's. Mine's is a FMA Cayman style helmet. Bump helmets, like I said earlier, are just plastic shells with foam padding inside, very similar to like your bicycle helmet and stuff like that. Actually, some old school teams used to run the ProTac bicycle helmets, and they would drill different accessories onto them. That's actually a really cool and really great option. They also have the advantage of usually having some sort of ventilation holes like this. Some people ask some really interesting questions, like, have you ever had a BB go through that hole? And the answer for me is no. that would have to be pretty lucky, and I'm pretty sure it would ricochet off the edge of the hole before it goes in, simply because of the way they're designed. Bump helmets obviously are much lighter because they don't have to have aramid fiber or any kind of ballistic protection to them. So because of that, it's much easier to wear them for extended periods of time. I've worn this guy for over 24 hours pretty much, with taking it on and off of course, but it has not caused me any major headaches and all that stuff, whereas a ballistic helmet could give you a headache, could give you a strained neck. Of course, Over time, you're gonna get that little tension band around your headwear. That's for any helmet, that's pretty normal. I wouldn't worry so much about that. That's just the cons of wearing a helmet for like a milsim event and all that stuff. There are other kinds of headwear you can wear, and just remember guys, just like any other kit video that we do, it has to be kind of mission specific, or specific in airsoft terms, specific to whatever type of game you're playing. For indoors, I like a helmet because I don't like getting shot in the back of the head and stuff like that, and helmets have never really prevented me from cheating, because when you do get shot in the head, it's pretty darn loud. You can hear a big ding or a big tick, and you will call yourself out if you're an honest player, which you should be. For outdoors, helmets aren't always the best option. I do like hats outdoors, especially in really long games where you're playing in the woods. Something like a boonie hat or a cap that you can put some scrim on, which is basically like netting or something like that to help camouflage you, could be better for those situations. On hot summer days, helmets aren't always the best either, because sweating into this essentially turns this into a big salty bowl, which is disgusting. So hats do have their place for sure, but I do typically try to wear helmets often when I play, just because I like the head protection and because of the mounting solutions. Going into another aspect of choosing your helmet is going to be the cut. And there's lots of different kinds of cuts of helmets. For the shell, which is the plastic or ballistic protective part, you have airframes and all that stuff, and the cut more so refers to where the ears kind of are, which is over here. All of the helmets I have on me are going to be high cut or super high cut, which means that it's kind of like a mullet, where it only goes in the front, the top, and the back, and the ears are empty. You obviously have those old school style kind of mesh helmets or something similar to that style, where you have something covering the ears. I typically don't like that because it's really hard to fit ear protection or any kind of stuff unless you wear it underneath, which isn't the most comfortable. Gonna get to that really soon. And because it flares out a bit and makes your head a little bit of a bigger target, and it traps a lot of heat and sound in that area. Especially on airsoft, you don't really have to worry about bullets flying by and super loud noises. You generally want to hear everything around you, and having that kind of covering on your ears is not the best for that. Also, having stuff there does add quite a bit of weight, because it is quite a bit of material added to the side of the helmet. So for any airsoft helmet, unless you're going for a specific look, which in that case you guys are probably watching different videos, I would always recommend a high cut or a super high cut helmet. That way, when you put your helmet on, the rails and stuff go around your ears. It's much more comfortable, and it affords you an important thing for all these critical kit videos is options for attachments. Now then, you're going to also be looking at the cam system. So this one is going to be called an H-nape. This is a really simple ops core one, and what this does is it basically cinches to where your cerebellum is, the big brainy part of your cranium over here, and that kind of pulls the helmet into you. And then you have the straps that go, the chin strap and stuff that go down the bottom. You definitely want something that's a bit more adjustable. I don't like this because it doesn't have that range of adjustment, and this helmet is a little bit big for me. So this system is not super recommended. However, it does work for a lot of people, and it's worked for a lot of guys in real life environments, just not my thing. So this harness over here is my preferred harness, as well as with these Wendy's that have an even better one. This is going to be the OpsCore headlock kind of harness. And the reason I like this is because of this little dial, and you probably see this on a lot of bicycle helmets and things like that. And what that does, it allows you to adjust slightly the circumference of the helmet and the way it fits your head. I like to have that on, especially now. I have grown a lot of hair since the quarantine, so I have to loosen up a bit. I can tighten it up a bit depending on how tight or how loose I want my helmet to sit. It's pretty useful, especially on a hot day. Sometimes I want to loosen it up a little bit. Sometimes if I'm wearing night vision, I want to tighten it up a bit so I don't have my nod swinging around. Now, the inside of the helmet is going to be foam. There's lots of different kinds of foam padding out there and different kinds of hardness. You want to kind of pick the one that's best for you. Team Wendy has made some great foam. TNDC also has some really great foam. Of course, the better foam is going to be more expensive. You can also buy cheap foam online, and those generally work pretty good. On my helmet, I also have this black kind of crash foam that they use in bicycle helmets. That just adds a bit more space and also adds a bit more protection for bumping my head on stuff. So to attach the foam and any other kinds of things inside the helmet to make it fit better, usually helmets do come with Velcro circles or dots. However, if that's not enough Velcro for you, or especially on repro helmets, it tends to be Velcro of questionable quality. what you can do is you can go to your local hardware store or anywhere that sells just Velcro adhesive. You can cut them into whatever size you want, squares, circles, doesn't matter, and you can put it on the inside. Generally, that Velcro is also better than the Velcro that comes with Earpro helmets. Another consideration for foam is that when foam does get cold, especially if you're playing in a cold weather game, it can freeze, so you want to be careful of that. There's some foam that is more resistant to moisture absorption. There's some foam that is less. It really just depends on you. Do some research. There's lots of different kinds out there. I can't speak for all of them. Now for the outside of the helmet and what you can mount on it. I'm going to kind of go from front to back here. So the front of my helmet is going to be a shroud. There's two basic kinds of shrouds out there, or there's three. There's like ratcheting shrouds. So ratcheting shrouds are those old school shrouds that kind of ratchet to the helmet and have different ways of attaching. Most helmets don't use that anymore unless you're going for a specific look. These shrouds are the ones that are going to be screwed into the helmet. So here I have a old school OpsCore one-hole shroud. One-hole shrouds generally aren't the best because they only are attached by one screw hole. You can get hybrid shrouds that do fix this issue by adding foam pads so you can have more friction. However, if you get one that is subpar, especially for a reproduction helmet, this shroud can start to swivel around, and that's really bad if you have a camera there, or worse, you have your night vision there, and it starts moving around on you when you don't want it. This helmet, I've attached a Wilcox shroud onto it, and this is a 3-hole shroud. And so 3-hole shroud means that it's obviously attached by 3 holes. It has 3 points of contact over here, and that basically makes it impossible for it to move from side to side, so you don't get that kind of torque out of it. So the shroud's pretty cool because it offers you front attachment points for a lot of different kinds of accessories. The main two being night vision and your action camera. So over here on the front of my helmet, I have a Wilcox G24, and this is to attach my night vision, which I do not have right now on me. I also have a GoPro Hero 5 Black that I use for playing at Siege, especially if I want to get some shots in for cool stuff. And that also attaches, that is very sensitive light, that also attaches on the front like this. And then you can kind of tilt that, and you can use that to record whatever footage you need. One of the best ways to mount an action cam, because it's very stable, doesn't move around, and generally you get a pretty good view of what you see because it's just right on top of your eyes. There's other different attachments for GoPros and things like that that allow you to bring the camera lower, more centered to your body, allow more range for adjustment, all that cool stuff. There's pretty great options in the market for that. Aaron over here has a Rhino and his night vision unit. I believe this is an NVM14, and that's a pretty interesting option. For his action cam, he actually mounts it on the side with Velcro. I've also done that before. I personally don't super love it. It gives you a really great view of the gun and a really great view of what you're seeing. It's a different kind of perspective. However, because it's mounted Velcro, I find it tends to move a little bit more, but that's really a preference thing. Max has a little GoPro Session, I believe, on his helmet, and that kind of allows him to have a really small camera attachment. You can also route this to a battery pack in the back if you need extra battery life. I'm gonna go over that soon. So after the shroud and whatever attachments you want to put on front is going to be my mesh. And so a lot of people have been asking, a very common question is, how do you attach your mesh onto your helmet? Well, there's a few considerations to have. For me, when I attach my mesh on my helmet, I take into consideration that my ear protection is going to be taking up some space in my head. I don't have a very large melon head. I have a pretty skinny, long olive head. So for me, I like to cut down my mesh to size. So this mesh over here is going to be cut down. I took some wire cutters and I cut it down, and then I just added some electrical tape, or you can use gaffer's tape or something better, to the side so that the exposed edges of the metal don't cut me. And this kind of contours to my mouth just right there when I want to play indoors if I'm using something other than my gas mask. I then attach this. I just run some shock cord or some bungee cord through the sides of these holes in the mesh. I just basically have some old barrel socks. I just cut the cording off the barrel socks, and that works fine. And then I have this little arc rail clip. Some helmets will come with this, some helmets won't, but they're pretty cheap online. I run the shock cord over my ear protection, because if you run it underneath, your ear protection won't seal properly. And that could be an issue, especially if you're running a game that has noise devices in it. And then I just basically clip my mesh onto the side like that. And that allows me to take my mesh on and off and move it up and down with ease. Some people do like to attach their eye protection to their helmet. I personally don't like that because sometimes I want to take my helmet off in a game, especially in an outdoor milsim game, just to get a bit of air on my head or to rearrange my hair or something going on there. And I don't want to have my Eypro reliant on my helmet. However, some people do like to attach their Eypro on, which is a totally good option, and I have nothing against that. It's just not for my kind of philosophy of use. Now going to the sides. So these are called arc rails. Arc rails are a pretty standard way of attaching things. Most OpsCore and OpsCore style helmets will have arc rails. However, depending on the brand of helmet you have, your rail attachment options might be different. For these Wendy's, they love to use their proprietary rail attachment system, so you're gonna have to buy accessories specifically for a Team Wendy helmet. If you have something really cool, like an M-Tech helmet, those like to use M-Lock. So you're gonna have to find something that uses M-Lock to attach your ear protection or to attach your mask and all that stuff to it. So for my ear protection and also my comms devices, I'm running Howard lights. The reason I like Howard lights is because they're cheap. I'm a poor boy and I do not have money for Sword-ins or amps or Peltors or anything like that for now, and they do the job for me. These Howard lights, you can find them at most sporting goods stores or on Amazon. They're anywhere between $60 and $70. I really recommend them if you're on a budget. I recommend them over budget Airsoft, Earpro, and things like that, simply because they're actually made for real shooters. They're really popular in the real shooting world as a budget form of active ear protection. Now, going on ear protection, there are two basic kinds of ear protection. There's passive ear protection, and that's anything like foam plugs or little surefire little buds or something like that. And there's active ear protection, which is like something like Howard lights or something like, I believe these are MSA Sword-ins. Yes, these are MSA Sword-ins or Sword-ins or something like that. So active ear protection, for those of you who do not know, they basically have little speakers and microphones and things like that on the inside of them. This allows, when you put the ear protection on, you turn it on, you're able to hear a normal conversation or things going on around you. When there's a loud noise, the ear protection cuts off to prevent you from having any hearing damage. The reason why I recommend active ear protection over passive is because if you're having a conversation with someone, you don't need to yell to get your voice inside the foam plug, and it also cuts off when you need it. Active ear protection also has the benefit of being compatible with communications devices. Now these Howard lights probably don't look like that, and people often ask how to do that. Probably going to be a separate video that we cover on communications devices and radios. However, what I basically do is I run a 3.5mm aux cable, because this has a little jack over here, to a PTT, a push to talk, which allows me to transmit my voice, and then I run that with a Kenwood plug to my Baofeng radio. And I do have a radio setup, and it works really, really well. A big upgrade that I do recommend if you do get Howard lights is to get the Noise Fighter gel cups for the inside. The pads that come with these are kind of crappy, they're not the best. And once you upgrade to the Noise Fighter gel cups, you get a much better seal around your ears. They don't press into your ears as much, so you can wear them for a more extended period of time because they're made of a combination of memory foam and gel. They have a little cutout, so when you wear glasses or other Eypro, it's easier to ride above. And they also actually increase the noise protection that you get because the material is just provides better acoustics for those kinds of things. So these are mounted onto 3M Peltor arc rail adapters. If you're gonna skimp out on anything, these things are the things I do not recommend you skimping out on, because the fake ones for these have a tendency to pop in and out all the time. These ones, I've never really had that problem. They kind of pop in and out, and they're really solid, as you can probably hear. Take a lot of force to do, and they pop in with a lot of force. Active ear protection like this is also really great because it kind of clamps around your head, especially if you're wearing night vision or any other kind of big device like a camera. It prevents your helmet from swinging side to side even more. Generally a much more stable fit. On this side, I have here a stream light that I've been having trouble with because it keeps activating on the table. However, when I wear it on my head, it's not a problem. And the reason I have a light on my helmet is because it provides me with an option to see things without having to point my rifle at stuff. I also have a handheld light that I have in my chest rig, and you guys have seen that from my previous chest rig video. Having this light pointing up allows me to do what is called umbrellaing the light. And to umbrella the light, you are in a room and you turn the light on and it creates a hot spot right above you. This prevents you from shining it in everybody's face, and then the light kind of reflects off of the surfaces of the wall and the ceiling and fill the room with a kind of a dim glow. It's really helpful if you need to do any low light stuff, any administrative things like that. On the back of my helmet, I don't have too much. It's just a patch keeping my scrim, which is what I'm going to go over soon, in place. However, when I do run night vision or something heavy on the front, I do run a counterweight there. And the counterweight is basically a pouch with metal bits in it that prevents my night vision from sagging up and down. It just keeps the weight of my head more even at the cost of having a slightly more weight on my helmet. Onto that, something that you really want to consider for a helmet is to give it a shake test. And this is even more important than any other piece of gear that you have, because this is going directly on your noggin and the thing that you are moving around the most, which is going to be your head. If you have wobbly bits on your helmet and stuff like that, it's going to really strain your neck. It's going to cause momentum when you're turning your head, and it's generally not going to be a good time. Because your head's also moving around a lot, wobbly bits and things like that, if they get knocked into something, they have a tendency to fall off. So as with guns, as with gear, as with anything, the less wobble, generally, the better. So for Max's helmet here, he actually does something really smart, is because these little sessions I don't believe have too much battery life, he runs a cable, he wires it through the vent hole of the helmet and into a battery pack which he has on the back. He also has this really cool little Sear 123 holder if you need extra batteries for your lights or your lasers or things like that. This battery pack in the back can also act as a counterweight if you have a big piece of night vision, or you can add more weight to the back. It's just a pretty great idea, something that I should definitely copy. For Aaron's helmet over here, he has something that I lost, and this is kind of why you don't want wobbly bits on your helmet, is generally helmets have Velcro on the outside for you to attach patches and accessories on it. One popular accessory is going to be a kill light or some sort of helmet light. This, basically when you're dead in a game that requires it, you turn it on, it glows red, it lets everybody around you know that you are out of the game and you're waiting either to get medicked or waiting to go back to respawn. Generally a really useful device to have. On your helmet, you can run a multitude of things. There are great companies out there, a lot of great local ones too, that are making covers for helmets and things like that. Not all helmets will have the same kind of cut, so you want to make sure that you get a cover that's appropriate to your helmet cut and that works with your device. For me, because I am cheap, I run what's called scrim, or some sort of camo netting on my helmet. This is actually a really effective and cheap solution, especially if games require you to have your helmet gear match your other gear. So I wear green typically, and I'm typically on the green team, so I put this green kind of netting on my helmet. It helps camouflage my head when I'm in the bush, and also generally looks pretty cool. Super easy to do. All you need is scissors, and you can attach it with zip ties, a bit of Velcro, and a little bit of intuition. For Max and Aaron's helmet here, they just painted it. That's also another really great option you have, because you can just do it whatever color you want, and it looks pretty cool. In terms of helmet color, I wouldn't really worry about it too much, because you can get helmets in green and tan and black and whatever funky color you want. However, unlike your kit, like your plate carriers, your chest rigs, and your BDUs, helmets are really easy to cover up. So you can basically just put a piece of netting on it, paint it up, or buy a cover for it, and that pretty much solves your issue. I know people that sell their black helmets because they want a tan helmet, and then they put a green cover on it. So in my opinion, don't really worry about that, guys. Just find whatever fits your budget best and accommodate for that. Now, a few considerations going into wearing your helmet. It's going to be kind of important. So I'm going to put my helmet on. Hopefully it's well adjusted. As you can see, I've grown a lot of hair since quarantine, and it fits pretty perfectly good. It's good to have a buddy with you to make sure that everything's not lopsided, because you don't want your helmet kind of sitting like this. You want it sitting so that this is pretty level with your brow line and it's sitting pretty nice. Now, obviously, the real test is when you put Eypro and all that funny stuff on. So over here, I have a pair of Smith Aegis 2s. These are going to be ballistic glasses. However, when you're at Siege, use full seal. I'm just using these as an example because I have them on hand. You want to make sure that your Eypro is sitting with no gaps, preferably. Not all Eypro can accommodate for that, and it's sitting pretty level to your face. This is one thing you want to test, is that you don't want to have too much padding on the top of the helmet, because you don't want to look like Ki-Adi-Mundi, I think, the Star Wars character with the giant tall head. You can put him in there. And he has like a huge head, and if you were to put a helmet on, he would have like a 6 head. It's like bigger than a 4 head, bigger than a 5 head. And you don't want your forehead really exposed. It doesn't look good. Also, the gap over there is probably the most painful place on your body to get shot at that isn't anywhere too intimate. So that's something you want to consider. Even for gas masks, you want to consider the gaps and stuff like that in the fitting of your helmet. So if I were to wear this helmet, I would click on the Earpro. Now I usually have my Earpro up when I'm not using it. When I have it down like this, it's got to fit over that. So my Earpro is going to sit here. I'm going to turn it on so I can hear what's going on. So make sure your Earpro sits on your ears properly, like that, and then you can click them in. Or if you're wearing something like Unity marks or stuff like that, you have to just use the tension. That's the reason why I don't really like them. You just click them in like that and make sure everything's sitting properly and sitting good. And then you can kind of shake your head a bit. Make sure that the helmet's not moving too much and you're good to go. Then if you have a mesh mask, which I have attached to my helmet, I kind of just bring it over like this, over my camera, and I wear it like that. Of course, there's little gaps and stuff like that. Hasn't really been a problem for me personally. However, when I do get shot there, I just treat it as a reminder to getting good. Now, once you have your helmet on, you want to grab your rifle, you want to sling it up, especially if you have a 2-point sling. You want to make sure that your sling's not getting caught up on any little bits if you need to take it on and off, because that's going to be really annoying. And you want to shoulder your gun. And when you shoulder your gun, you want to make sure that you can get a good cheek weld. You want to make sure that it doesn't push your Earpro out or anything like that out of the way. And then you can transition easily left and right and run your drills with it. So this is why I like the mesh mask on the elastic, because I can easily take it on and off without having to lose anything, and it just kind of stays there. Especially for outdoor games, I don't always want to wear my mesh mask when I'm outdoors, because I kind of want to breathe a bit better, kind of want a little bit better of a cheek weld. I'm not really too worried about being shot in the face from 200 feet away. However, in a field like PRZ, if I'm hitting some CQB areas, I want to be able to quickly take my mask, put it on, and hit that area without potentially getting some expensive dental surgery down the line. So that's kind of my helmet setup. I'm sure there's a million different helmet setups up there for you. Just be sure, no matter what helmet you pick, what accessories you put on, get some practice with it, try it on. Of course, it looks cool, but if you're not good with it, you're gonna look like a doofus no matter what. So practice, guys. We hope to see you out here soon when we can, and stay safe, everybody.